There's never been a worse time. Problem. There's never.
So I wanted to do a story breakdown of the Keep Thinking video from Anthropic. And so it was created by a creative agency called Mother and directed by Daniel Wolf. The video goes by very quickly. It's 1 minute, 30 seconds long. Unless you pause the video and actually look at what's happening, it's really difficult to kind of actually see the structure. And so first I want to talk about something called controlling idea. Controlling idea is basically what a piece of art is saying. If you could reduce it to a sentence of cause and effect, given these conditions, what are you saying about life? That's what controlling idea is. And you basically need to know this at some point in the process of creating a story of what you're actually trying to say. You know, what is this controlling idea for this video? And so I just wrote down the sentence of cause and effect. When AI appears to end creativity, we discover it's never been a better time to imagine. Any sort of story is going to take you between two polarities. They can be negative to positive, they can be positive to negative, but there must be an arc of change. Why is change so important? Change creates meaning. When change happens, we infer something about life, and it teaches us a lesson. And so what are the terms? What are the charges we're moving between? So we're moving from noise to order. We're moving from cultural noise, uncertainty, angst, being stuck and trapped, lost, disorder, shame, a malaise. There's just a general feeling of sickness, to this world of order, clarity, sureness, clear-headedness, freedom, being found, human dignity. And so this is kind of the message we want to get across. And so first, before we look at the individual frames, I want to talk about film and empathy. So it's important to understand film is a subconscious medium. It's a medium that acts on our emotions before we're even consciously aware of what's happening. And there was this one Breakfast Club interview with Ryan Coogler where he talked about this. I'll just play that now.
Music is just hitting one sense. It's just hitting your ears, your hearing. And film is hitting two very powerful senses, your hearing and your sight. Because it's giving you more, it's more likely to overpower you and you're gonna miss something that then your subconscious will work to try to break down and unpack. I've seen movies, man, and thought coming out of the theater, man, I don't know if I like that one. And I go home and I dream about it. You know what I'm saying? I wake up the next day and I'm thinking about it. I go sleep on it, wake up the next morning and say, man, I actually like that. That's my subconscious breaking it, you know what I'm saying, breaking it down.
The visual information activates the emotion processing regions before we're even consciously aware of what's happening. And you can communicate ideas that writing never could and many other mediums never could. So for example, when you're watching this video, when you see someone stuck laying on the ground, when you see someone anxious like this, you are feeling the same thing. You're connected to this person, you're connected to this person, and you feel what they're feeling. And you can understand this in half a second. When this person is dancing, you're feeling this same movement and freedom. And so this is empathy. You know, by some miracle of perception, we can watch images and feel these same emotions. It's amazing this even works. And so it's important to understand that a film is a simulated reality. You know, we identify with the characters and events on the screen, and it's important to understand that these characters are not people. These are constructs in our minds, which obviously we identify them as people, but these are dramatized versions of archetypes of people. Now that we understand how film works at a subconscious level, as well as the kind of controlling idea, like what is this actually trying to say to us, we can much better understand on a shot-by-shot basis what this is trying to say to us. You have this first act, which is about 20 seconds long, which is just creating this feeling of stuckness and dread. And it breaks off in this climactic moment at the 20-second mark, exactly at the 24th frame of the 19th second, where a piano falls and then everything drops. The music drops. And so it's important to do this at 20 seconds. The average social attention span is roughly 20 seconds long. This is when people will probably leave a video. Act 2 is when you're actually creating. This is when you're empowered. That ends around, the 21st frame of 1 minute, 10 seconds. And then we move on to this final phase of creative flourishing, which is basically just, seeing the after effect of, what we're actually trying to say. So remember that we're moving between these two charges across the video, these two polarities. And so what's the first polarity? Well, we're building this noise, this loss and confusion. And there's no single protagonist in this video. We're seeing a montage of different characters. You have these irritating sounds.
Never been a worse time.
These fast cuts, which are, meant to, confuse you, jar you, and you have these darker and cooler tones. Immediately, we first see this flashing green text. And it's important to remember in the first 2 to 4 seconds of a video, you need to show contrast. It needs to grab the person's eyes and attention on fast-moving timelines. We load into our head that we're dealing with problems, and then you see this person stuck, you see this person thinking at a lake, they're also stuck, and then we have someone breaking their pencil. There's no way you could kind of write this in words for someone to feel that same feeling of breaking a pencil. It's happened to basically all of us. This person lost in papers, this person laying on the ground stuck. We have a tired kind of building. We have this pressure cooker. You're trapped. It's like this cultural pressure. And then you have this person standing here feeling angst, this fractal confusion, someone lost in a maze. Again, someone's lost in this office, and then we're dealing with natural disasters, and then we have this sharp kind of pain. This person kind of like stabs this plow thing into the ground, and then the same direction, we see the city lights shutting off. Again, it's a natural disaster. And then finally, we reach the breaking point, the climax, where this person is standing here, and then the frame cuts so fast to this piano falling in the same region of the frame that we feel as if the piano fell on this person. And so that's Act 1. By the end of Act 1, you should feel pretty anxious. And then now we're going to completely change the charge. We're going to flip the charge from negative to positive. We completely change the color language. We go to this brighter, warmer tone. And then immediately we introduce Claude. Claude as the, thing that is going to create this cultural change, this cultural change of charge. And so we're going to have momentum, motion, freedom, exploration, clarity. So what we're going to do is we're going to undo this mayhem, undo this piano falling on this person, and we're going to immediately make that connection to the product. We have this person in this library, and then we basically create a metaphor for being deep in thought. There are 2 layers into this library. And then we have this person spinning this bike gear. And we're feeling this motion. This person is seeing through the problems. They're seeing through this chessboard. And then, you have collaboration. You have this unity. And then you have nature, clarity. This person, you see someone attacking problems. This is all metaphorical imagery that we immediately understand in a subconscious way. And I'm attaching words here, but it's much more than these words. We immediately just feel these images. And then you reach this end state. So the climax of the second act is you now have a clear mind and you're empowered and you're thinking, which the campaign is keep thinking. And so finally, Act 3 is kind of this conclusion, which is the text reinforces the subconscious message. It says keep creating, coding, learning, keep thinking. And then finally, you have this like creative expansion, which is the end result, which is, we're really empowered. It's important to understand there's no one image that you can point to that has it all. This is the most powerful thing you can do in film because then the watcher has to be invested. The watcher has to be invested in understanding what's going on. What does that do? It creates a more powerful subconscious effect. So the film is most powerful when the viewer connects the images. And so now we understand the story structure. We've looked at a lot of these individual frames, which are connected in interesting ways, and we understand the controlling idea, what we're actually trying to say. So we're going to go even lower level, and we're going to look at the individual techniques used on the frames to connect them in metaphorical ways. So the first thing we're going to talk about is shape. We see this kind of diagonal composition with this kind of square here. And so you can see this diagonal composition here as well. So you can see how this was perfectly planned across these 3 shots. And we see a similar thing. We see this diagonal composition with the person's body and a diagonal composition with this building. And so what this does is it smooths the gap between these images. So they can be different ideas, but we still feel this visual continuity so we can easier understand them. And then we have this kind of rectangle composition, cutting through this image right here with a negative space. And then we also have this circle here for the earth, the circle with the eye. See, the eye direction is where the piano is going to come from. This person's looking where the piano is going to come from. Eventually it falls on the person. And then we have this kind of T composition here. And we also have a similar composition for this brain image. And then we have these circles for this kind of person looking at this expansive building. Then we have these circles afterwards, and we have the circles moving on this woman's arm as she dances. And then finally, we have this kind of paneled composition, kind of that arcs. And then we have the same thing. We have these panels, which arcs as well for this conductor. So you can see how shape connects these images. Then we're going to talk about, this is one of my favorite things, the focal point of an image. What is the narrow area of the image our eyes are looking at? So for any video that goes viral or any sort of video that does well, you'll find that the focal point is very pointedly moved between different areas of interest. And so for example here, our eyes are drawn to the missing letter. We already know it's an E. And then in the same area of the composition, we see an E. So this very narrow portion of the frame. This reduces tension. And so eyes are naturally a focal point here. And then the focal point stays the center of the building. And then this text on this pressure cooker. So we have this focal point, similar across those images. So we have this guy looking this way. And then we have this huge black circle here, and the contrast of this black is going to draw our eyes to it, so the focal point is here. And then we have this big negative space here. So our eyes are sort of drawn to this line of contrast here, but they're going to be drawn here. So this focal point, again, is anchored right there. And then these This maze looks like these piano keys. The focal point is at the edge of this marker. This is the activity happening in the frame. And then this guy's eyes at the piano, the focal point is also obeyed there. And then we have this person looking here, and then the eye of the hurricane is at the center. So we have this person dancing's eyes right here. Again, remember, we're attracted to eyes. We'll move to that place in the frame. And then we have this person's eyes. He's moving in the same region. And then he does a little circle here. And then his eyes end up here looking in this direction. And what ends up there in the next cut, it's this woman on the cliff at this exact point. And then we're going to talk about eyeline. We touched on some of these already, but this person's eyeline is right here. That's where the next point of contrast is, with the visual weight is pushing to the left. And then this guy looks down, visual weight pushing to the left. This woman is looking here. The eye of the hurricane is there. And then we have this person who stabs the pitchfork down this way, and then the lights turn down this way. We have this person who's looking up, their eye line's going towards the piano, and the piano falls from there. And then color. We have this green tied to this green of problems. We have this black tied to this black. We have this tinted green. So we have tint of green, we have tint of green, and then we have tint of green. And then after the Act 1 turning point, everything opens up. We've got this warm color of the Claude logo. We've got someone deep in thought, this warm bike shop. And then we have this, tan desert sands color. And then we have this blue color. And you can see that this conductor is blue, this aquarium is blue, and then this guy's surroundings are blue. And then the final one I'll talk about is motion. Again, remember, we're empathizing. We are these characters. We will feel what they feel. We feel this person running. We feel their motion. When this person is dancing and they're rising up in slow motion, we feel that freedom. And this person's dancing in the office, it makes us feel that same freedom, dancing in a normally constrained, constricted setting, like an office. The ideas across images change, but the contents are very intimately connected together, so it has maximum subconscious effect. And so this is why film is a medium that stays with us. It is subconscious. And so if you want to look at all of these frames and study them, I've left a full PDF below, and you can kind of go through the slideshow. You can look at all of these frames, and you can even draw the connections yourself to see how they're kind of connected together. And it's kind of beautiful how all of these things were planned. The color, the shape, the focal point, the composition, to stitch all of these frames that actually all say something together. So I'll leave that in the description.